Los Angeles to Sacramento. We're a little bit over halfway. 6 of us has walked the whole way, and many of us have walked different parts of this walk. We're college students, we're teachers, we are probation officers, we are healthcare workers, we are union organizers, we are community members, we are people who want services for all of you. We don't want your librarian to be cut. So we're walking to Sacramento to let them know.
And it's really been nice to see kind of the legacy of the marches that Chavez did and the farm workers did too, because I think there's a lot of kind of positive response. People kind of get it immediately. Okay, there's somebody marching for something here.
I'm glad to see this happening, this movement, making people aware of what's going on, and I want to see some changes here. I think that the march is taking our voice. Where we can't go, they're going for us, and I'd like to support that march and be part of it if I can.
Have these kinds of deficits we're running up and lack of commitment to things like infrastructure. We're just kind of leaving the problems to our children. At the same time, we're penalizing them by not giving them a world-class education any longer.
We're here to support the march, and it's bigger than just a march. It's bigger than just April 21st. This is about building relationships with our alliances out there and maintaining those relationships and being there for when they need something.
We know it can't just be a fight for education. It's got to be a fight for social services, health care, make sure that the parks have funding so our children can go and play in public parks and state parks, to make sure that the infrastructure is protected so that our roads and highways are being rebuilt. So it's about education. It's also about the social services that are vital to the state. And the only way that we're going to get there is if we are fighting for progressive tax reform, and that means fighting to do what the people of Oregon have done just a few weeks ago, making sure that the wealthy are paying their fair share and making sure that corporate California is paying their fair share.
Legislators can think that they can change things and it won't affect people. And in fact, it has affected a lot of people. And just to see people's attitudes and support that they've given us, and even individuals that just don't understand or just don't want to understand, they're willing to take the time and stop and listen to what we have to say and to explain to them that why we are marching.
It's a huge deal.
To pass a budget
and
requires a
the
two-thirds majority. And anytime Republicans decided with Democrats to help pass a budget over the last 15 years,
so what
next election,
is that every year
they target them, their own party, they eat their own. So we never get anything done. That's why they're always so late in passing the budget. It's been awesome to meet people out in the community. Today, gathering signatures for the petition was great. Mostly had supportive responses.
You know, once I knew that we were going to be doing it, you know, camping out in the motorhomes, you know, it's been similar to my expectations, actually, because, you know, if you ever try to pack, you know, 7 people into close quarters, you know, you got to cooperate, you have to get along, you have to kind of have ground rules. Okay, talk on the phone outside, you know, here's how we're going to clean up after we have food, you know, and I think, you know, that's been the kind of nice thing about it is you can imagine it going terribly, but I think it's a good group and everybody's chipping in and getting along well and kind of trying to be understanding of each other's needs.
Walking by a lot of almond trees, you know, we've been crop dusted. We've gotten an incredible reception all along the way. So it's constant horns honking, people stopping, people raising their fist at us, telling us that what we're doing is great, that they really support us. People stop to give us water, stop to give us fruit, stop to share their own stories with us. And these are people from all walks of life. So we're having everybody from campesinos to retired farmers' wives in Lincoln Continental town cars stopping to, you know, she gave us $15.
Principal Lopez is the one we want to thank. Big round of applause for him. And all of your teachers who I know work past their contract hours every day probably.
Have you lost weight, Jim?
You know, surprisingly, not as much as one would think. About 5 pounds, you know, because we've had some days like, you know, as high as 17 plus miles, you know, but, you know, we've also been eating a lot of barbecues. People say, here, we're going to feed you pizza, and we're going to feed you barbecue. So that sort of interfered with the weight loss program. But it's nice to have the solidarity nonetheless.
I just want to give you one of our t-shirts.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys very much.
And the Core Marchers, if you want it signed, we'll sign it for you. I don't always like to get t-shirts with a bunch of signatures on it.
Neither do
We want
I.
you to wear it.
That's right.
All right. So yeah, we want you to wear it.
Well, good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you all to Planada Elementary School. I know it was a bit of a surprise for our students this afternoon. They kind of did not expect to see what was going to be happening this afternoon on behalf of the marching movement. So it was a pleasure to see you guys here at our campus this afternoon. I think the kids enjoyed it. And now as part of the program, we were asked to have our School Folklorico group present this afternoon. They've got a recital of 5 dances that they're going to perform for you this afternoon. And so on behalf of Planada Elementary School, I'd like to welcome you. I'd like to thank the California Federation of Teachers for putting this together and selecting Planada as a rest stop. So thank you guys very much.
Walk through towns in which people are living under the freeway overpass.
Yep.
In tent cities and cardboard boxes. That's the kind of stuff you expect to see in third world countries.
Yeah, well, I've got a grandson living with me. His family's living up in Grass Valley. You know, he's working here, and they're living up there. They see each other often, but what kind of life is that? I have a son moving back in with me.
Well, and then
Luckily,
you know what the economy is doing.
Trust me, I know. Yes.
Anyway, we're marching to Sacramento to let them know we've had enough of the gamesmanship they've played, and you can follow us on the internet on that website. I think it's right here.
And how are you getting your support to do this?
Well, it's primarily sponsored by the California Federation of Teachers, but we have support from most of the other unions, SEIU, CSEA, firefighters, because they're all being hurt. I mean, you know, if you have a fire in your house, you expect the fire department to be there in a New York minute, but if they've had their services cut and their hours cut, that's a problem.
That's true.
They always cut what they figure will hurt you the most.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's what people are willing to go ahead and fight for. And,
that's
you're right, they can't cut any more hours out of our schools. They just can't. God bless all of you.
Trying to provide universal coverage for over 100 years. And when you think about the fact that insurance companies spent over $1 million trying to convince you to convince me not to vote for it, and you think about that dynamic, just that $1 million that they spent on just me, think about how this system needs reform.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for voting for the health care bill, because I'm a senior citizen, I'm covered by Medicare, and among the many things of the bill is it keeps it solvent for another 20 years and fills in that awful donut hole that was created a number of years ago.
Right.
So I think that's important. And to the lady who was just talking about education, we're marching for education right now. We're teachers in California. California has lost $17 billion in funding for public education, and districts are being told what money you've got, what little money you've got, cannibalize one program to save another.
Sure, and I'd also like to thank you for your healthcare vote. From San Diego, marched over 280 miles so far to get here. And when we were in Merced, we saw a fine talk by Professor Brecken, you know, about the New Deal. And I think two things that I would like to ask you to take back to Washington is, I think the Democrats today need to be a lot more like FDR was in the 1930s, and that would address a lot of the things that you're talking about. Specifically, I think that doing more things like work projects, bringing stuff. We've done a lot for the banks. Now it's time to do a lot more for Main Street and the people who are out of their houses and the schools that are getting closed down.
Honestly, we haven't done enough of what we need to do to get this economy back on track. I spent about 45 minutes to an hour with the president in the Oval Office about 3 weeks ago. And I gave him a very frank, tough time about the fact that he needs to come out and feel the pain that my constituents are going through right now, that he needs to redirect a lot of the administrative efforts in ways that are effective for us. The number one foreclosure place in the country is either Merced or Stockton any given week, and yet we didn't get enough of the NSP money, and they wrote the rules in the Department of HUD that discriminated against our two counties, the worst in the country. And frankly, I called for the resignation of the housing secretary. My proposal to do a 4% mortgage for everybody in America and reduce their mortgage rates would have cost $300 billion. The converse of what we actually did cost over $2 trillion. And there was more stimulus to the economy, and more people would be working today if we had gotten the Treasury Secretary and the President at that time to follow the program that I proposed. On average, if you refinanced everybody in America, that would have been $500 a month more in every American family's pocket that you refinanced their mortgage on. We would have had more spending, we'd have had local investment. You wouldn't need to be marching as a teacher to get more stimulus money, because we'd have gotten it through the normal means and channels by building the economy from the grassroots up.
Close loopholes, not school! Close loopholes, not school! Close loopholes, not school!
Hey, Fred. Hi, my name is Jim Miller, and I'm with the California Federation of Teachers. I teach at San Diego City College, and it's my pleasure to have walked over 300 miles to speak to you here today in Galt. I'm marching because I want my son not to go to an overcrowded elementary school. He's in kindergarten at McKinley Elementary in San Diego. I'm marching because I want to be able to afford to put him through college without shredding my retirement savings. And I'm marching for my nieces at UCLA. They just had a 30% tuition increase over the last year. There went my 58-year-old brother's retirement, just like that. And I know there are hundreds of thousands of people all over the state of California going through exactly the same thing right now. And as everybody knows who reads the paper, California's really become the laughingstock of the nation with regard to our budget. And everybody also knows that education used to be the pride of the Golden State. We used to be the best state in the entire United States in terms of higher education, in terms of K-12 education, and now we've become a laughingstock. But there's a reason why that's happened. You go back to 1978 when we required a 2/3 majority to raise revenue or pass a budget in this state. If you want to know why there's gridlock year after year after year in California, it's because we have a 2/3 majority requirement to pass a budget or to raise revenue in the state, and that needs to end now. Just to give you a couple examples of ways in which a fair tax system could help fund education, if we simply returned the top 1%, people who make over $250,000 a year. Anybody here make over $250,000 a year? Okay, you're off the hook. You're safe. Right, but if we did that, back what we did during Pete Wilson's governorship, a Republican, back in the early 90s, we could solve a quarter of the budget deficit problem today. It would bring in $5 billion annually. A couple other things. There are 21 states that take oil out of the ground. California is the only state in the United States that doesn't have an oil severance tax. Sarah Palin's Alaska has one. George Bush's Texas has one. We need something like that here in California to fund education and vital public services. You know, and the fundamental thing here is this isn't something that happened like the rain. It's not like nature. This is a fundamental political choice in California. We've decided to ask the top 1% and the most powerful corporations in the richest state, in the richest country, in the entire world, not to sacrifice a penny at a time we're giving teachers' pink slips, shutting down schools, throwing old folks out of their home care, shutting down state parks, and that needs to stop now. So what we need to do on the political front is help pass the Majority Budget Act to help end some of the gridlock in Sacramento. And I hope to see all you guys out on the 21st, next week on Wednesday at the state capitol. Let's make some noise there.
Where are you eating today?
We're eating now over here at the Valley Oaks Grange.
Who's feeding you? Is it the Grange?
I'm not sure if this is CFT or local folks from that school. You know, we'll find out when we go in. But some kind soul is offering us food along the road.
Yeah.
All right. Raise the bar a little bit.
What are you drinking here?
Iced tea. Nice and refreshing with lemon.
It hits the spot?
It hits the spot.
In fact, I'm going to have some more.
I wouldn't mind some.
Barbara was saying they were getting a little tired of hot dogs and hamburgers.
They are, yes.
And so we tried to find a place to give them a nice meal to eat. And this turned out to be it, because I guess I'm not a Grange member, but I think Lita, who's our chapter leader here, she's working in the kitchen there, so I think they're members of the Grange.
And then everybody one more time together, okay?
So, sisters and brothers!
You guys, I know I've went around and told you personally, but from it'll make me cry. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you, because what you're doing for our children is so important. They are taking so much away. And I said the other day that each generation wants more for their children than what they had. And we're fighting like heck just to give our kids what we had. They're taking everything away. So I thank you so much for giving of your time and my goodness, your energy, okay? So thank you very, very much. Enjoy your...
The legislators are probably thinking, oh, that's just a small group. Yeah, it may be a small group now. I said, but we're coming. And it's not just going to be us. We're going to come in full force. And when we get up there April 21st, I can already imagine how packed it's going to be.
Here in California. We just have to have a fair tax system which taxes the rich appropriately.
I want to first take a moment to recognize UDW. I want to recognize the CFT, the AFT, and all of ULTCW and SCIU who came out to make this march a success and to support these marchers who walked for the last 48 days across the state of California.
We cannot allow a minority of legislators to enact budgets that destroy rather than build.
The governor and legislators should be focusing on the real problems facing our schools, not trying to create diversions that deflect attention from the fact that they have cut $17 billion from our neighborhood schools and students over the last 2 years.
We're sending a strong message to our leaders that we do not intend to sit idly by and watch our state be destroyed.
Right now, Californians feel like you feel when you walk out your driveway and the window of your car has been broken. Feel like you've been violated? We have been violated. We've had year after year after year of corporate takeaways from working people.
But it is not the end of our movement. It is just the beginning of what we need to do to change what goes on inside this building behind us.
Thousands of public employees descended upon the Capitol, capping a 48-day, 365-mile journey that some made from Bakersfield to protest years of funding cuts to public services. They think wealthy people like the governor are the problem.
The people who are holding this state together with their labor and their sacrifice is not the issue. It's his friends with the yachts and the boats that are not paying their taxes.
And that rally Nanette mentioned broke up just a short time ago. The march was meant to send a strong message to lawmakers to restore public services, especially education, that have been cut because of the budget crisis. They also say most of the state's budget problems could be fixed with tax increases on the wealthy and closing corporate tax loopholes.
What I see happening is us getting together, debriefing this march, and saying, what's our next quantum leap? I don't believe in taking baby steps. What is that going to be? I'm not sure yet. But we do it together.